Italian song.
There was a rehearsal for that.
Wow, I just have this flashback of me on a fake camel doing this. In front of Michael Jacobs going, no, the camel has to go faster! Yeah, that was my Boy Meets World good-looking guy, yeah, wow. Hi, everybody!
Hello. It's going to be a long list if you start going through all the DC heroes this guy's playing. I only just realized I kind of accidentally am cosplaying as young Mr. Feeney. Just with the goatee, because he was a little hipper when he was younger.
Really, really young Mr. Feeney.
Mr. Matthews. Look, I've listened to the 1776 cast recording more times than it's probably healthy.
It's amazing. You know, I actually just had lunch with Bill like 2 weeks ago, and he's exactly the same person. He really is. He's exactly the same person.
So what are you doing with your life, young man?
You do. It's kind of that way. How's everything going? How's your career? Is everybody looking out for you? How's your family? It's like you're sitting with Mr. Feeney. It's really weird. Because he was like that with us. I guess we're just jumping in.
You went for it.
Bill still says to this day, we did 7 years with Bill, and by the time we finished, we all still thought he was British, which turned out he wasn't.
Have you never met someone from New England?
And I'm from New England, and it was one of those things where he said that to me at lunch. He said, is it true you all thought I was British? Like, yes, we did. We all thought you were British. He's not. But he was that guy where we were, Ben was 11 years old when we started the show. I was the old guy. I was 16. And then there was Bill, who was kind of all of our mentors and took us under his wing and just taught us how. The man in 7 years was never late to work, never missed a mark, never dropped a line. He was like a professional old school actor. And then there's a bunch of kids who were just really happy to be on a television show. And we learned how, we were actors, but we learned how to be professionals from William Daniels, who really was like, no, if your call time is 9 o'clock, you're there at 7:30. You know all your lines. You're there. It was an incredible way to learn how to be a professional actor from that man. Yeah, it was amazing.
Well, as you went through the process of doing Boy Meets World, and it ended, now we have...
It ended? It's over? Just been sitting at the studio for years. Yeah.
So, did you have any thought in the back of your mind that something like Girl Meets World could bring the characters back, that there was still that ongoing fandom behind the show?
Well, you know what's funny? You know what I don't think anybody really knows, and I might be the first one to actually tell anybody this, and I probably shouldn't be, but I'm gonna.
No, it's okay. Mike Jacobs said it was okay.
Yeah,
I got away from him.
About maybe a year or so Boy Meets World was on for 7 years, and it was popular while it was on, but it wasn't crazy popular. We just kept going. But we were never on the cover of TV Guide, or we weren't that show that had all the press, like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, or Family Matters, or any of that kind of stuff. We just were the little show that kept going. And then we ended, and they put it on Disney Channel for the second run, and then it became really popular. So we were already done, but a lot of people say, hey, I didn't watch it until it was on Disney Channel. So about the second year that it was on Disney Channel, Michael Jacobs called us all back together and said, the show's really popular, we think we want to do more. And we all kind of looked at each other and said, we've done 7 years of it, we're not sure we want to. And there was some talk that, hey, we're going to write 3 or 4 more episodes and see what you guys think. But at the time, Ryder was in college, Ben had kind of moved on, I was doing a different show. It was just we were all had kind of moved on, so it was really the actors that kind of said, we're not ready to do more episodes of Boy Meets World. And then we heard years later that, hey, Disney Channel is doing something called Girl Meets World, and all of us kind of went, what?
Yeah, it turns out all those fans of Boy Meets World, they grew up, they
had
kids.
Yeah, and
we would love to make something for them.
And yeah, so there was, and we at first were kind of skeptical, and then Michael said, no, it's going to be, I'm in charge, I'm running it, and we knew that once he got in, he was the one who was really creating it and got in charge, and Michael was the one who was going to have the final say on characters and development and the morality of the show. Then we knew we were going to be fine. Had somebody else come in and said, hey, we're going to do a spin-off of Boy Meets World that wasn't involved with the original show, we would not have been happy. But Michael being Michael, we knew that it was going to be in good hands, and that, again, I love television nowadays, but there isn't that pure family sitcom anymore. So the idea that Michael was going to come back and put one on, we were all very excited about.
I had an opportunity to meet Michael at a television festival in Austin a couple years back.
He's a funny guy.
He's hilarious.
And you just go, and then he just talks for 2 hours. It's great.
It's thank you so much for Boy Meets World. It said, well, look, we were really trying our hardest, and we really had our heart in it, and you get a little bit of an inspirational football coach speech.
He is, and it was that every single day. So we would do when you do a regular show, say we did a Friday to Thursday schedule. So Friday we would get our, Thursday night we would get our script. Friday we would come in, we'd do a table read, we'd all literally just sit around, all the characters, all the guest cast, everybody would just read the script from cover to cover in front of the network. Then they'd kind of go off and do notes, and we'd rehearse for that day. And then Monday you'd rehearse, and that would end with a producer's run-through. So just like a play, you would start at the beginning of the show, and you would run through the entire thing while the producers are standing there watching you. And then we would have what became famous for the Michael Jacobs note sessions, where we would sit down, and all of us would sit in a circle, and Michael would go, okay, here's the thing. I have no notes today. You guys did a great job. Page 1, line 1, let's start. And you'd go, wait, you just said you had no notes. And you'd sit there for 3 hours as he'd go, all right, here's the problem. And it was every day we had this, so Michael would constantly give, and we'd be going, man, this is taking forever, until we saw the final product, and then we knew, okay, this guy knows exactly what he's doing. And he's very specific with, he always told us, especially when we were doing Boy, he said, kids aren't stupid. You don't talk down to kids, you talk to kids. And that's what we thought Boy Meets World was. There was always a moral and a center, but it was never like we're ramming it down your throat, like this is, don't steal. It's like, no, it was never that. It was just something would happen, and there would be some kind of story that would evolve, and then a morality tale would come out from that. And that's the kind of thing we thought was missing nowadays. And that's why we were really happy that Michael said, no, I'm going to do Boy Meets World. So with him in charge, we knew we were fine.
Maybe the weirdest segue of all time. So in Romeo's world, there's actually a whole episode about the Dark Knight Returns. Are you disappointed they didn't do Batman Beyond?
No. I think Michael Jacobs is a huge comic book fan. Got an amazing comic book collection, and he's the one who actually put in, when I had just gotten Batman Beyond, I think we'd recorded 3 or 4 episodes, and he knew that I was going to be playing Batman. He put in a line where Eric is dating a girl, and then turns to her and says, by the way, I have a secret, I'm Batman. And he did that. He's like, I'm putting that in for you because I know you're Batman now. So it was a ton of fun. But no, he loved to use things that us as children would be able to understand. So he would often use comic books or cartoons or something like that to kind of teach his lesson. So he threw that in quite a bit.
What were some of the things that you were a big fan of when you were a kid? What were you just obsessed with? A lot of people come to these shows and they love this comic, they love this movie, they love this show, that kind of thing.
I have been incredibly blessed in that I've gotten to be involved in a number of the things that I was a huge fan of growing up. My favorite animated series growing up were Transformers, and now I get to be Bumblebee, which is awesome. I was a huge Thundercats fan, and I got to be Lion-O. Awesome, yeah. Which is that show, the cancellation is still like a knife in my heart.
Everybody in this room knows that show and loves that show, and it's sad that show didn't get a second season. Right?
Yeah, we wanted to. We were picked up for a second season, and the toys weren't selling. And if the toys don't sell, it didn't matter that our ratings were good, the show goes away. So so buy your toys. If you like a show and you want a show to stay, go and buy the toys or the show goes away. It's honestly the truth.
And for some reason you can't find the toys, tell them you can't find the toys.
Exactly. We knew it was bad when Walmart was calling, going, do we really have to keep selling these Thundercats toys, or can we get rid of them? It was like, oh, we're not going to be doing well with the show. But no, so I got to be involved in Thundercats. The other 2 shows, one came out, and my friend Jason Mars was on, was G.I. Joe. I was a big G.I. Joe fan growing up. Which I haven't been involved with. And the other one was a show called Mask. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Mask Crusaders working overtime.
Fighting crime. Yeesh.
There we go. You passed the test.
But it was they were the coolest toys in the world, and it was, you hit a button and it would turn into something else. But I keep trying to get that show back on the air.
You may be in luck. Hasbro is making a connected universe out of G.I. Joe.
Out of G.I. Joe, and everything's going to kind of be in. And there's rumors that in the next G.I. Joe movie that there's going to be some masks.
Oh, sorry, you guys are here too. Sorry.
Yeah. So that stuff like that was very cool. I'm also a huge fantasy nerd with books. So Piers Anthony growing up, like the Xanth trilogy, which is just 9 books in the Xanth trilogy, which I think is awesome. But so that kind of stuff I was a big fan of, and any kind of Animaniacs animation, Batman, and that kind of stuff I'm a big fan of.
You just gave me an easy layup. So Batman the Animated Series, Animaniacs, Batman Beyond, Thundercats. There is something in common with all of these properties. A saintly woman, a queen among human beings.
Yeah.
A person named Andrea Romano.
Yeah.
One of the great voice directors of all time.
All time.
There we go.
Yeah.
I know what I'm talking about.
She is. She's phenomenal. And she's the first one who actually ever directed me doing voiceover. So to walk into a room where they go, okay, so this is the first animated series you've ever done. Okay, great. Well, you're playing Batman. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Following Kevin Conroy. That's
You're going to be sitting between Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. Like, okay. Bruce Timm is your producer. okay. And Andrea Romano's your director. It was one of those things where it was like, oh, you've never acted before? Here's Steven Spielberg, you're starring in this movie. So it was one of those kind of unbelievable moments where no joke, I sat there the first day like this. And Kevin turned to me and just went, you know you can relax. I went, oh, okay, yeah, it's fine. And he taught me, he's like, no, roll your shoulders back and sit. And so he kind of was my mentor on how to be a voiceover actor. But Andrea, we always recorded together. So there'd be like 25 people in the room. And you read it like a straight radio play from the 30s. You'd start at the beginning and you'd just read it through. And you never knew who was going to be there. She had some of the coolest guest casts that were there, and John Ritter, and you never knew. So it was one of those days where I'd walk in every morning and I go, oh, this is going to be great. We would record it Thursday morning, and then I would go from there to another studio and I'd shoot Boy Meets World Thursday night. So it was the greatest thing in the world until the Thursday where both Batman Beyond and Boy Meets World ended on the same day. So I literally recorded my last Batman Beyond Thursday morning and drove to shoot my last Boy Meets World Thursday night on the same day. That was really tiring. I remember the guy who played the dad on that 70s show at the time was sitting next to me. Yeah, everyone's just shooting out his name. A great guy was sitting next to me. And he just turns to me and he said, so this is the last Batman Beyond? I said, yeah, then I got to drive and do the last Boy Meets World. And he kind of sat there and he went, wait a second, wait, what? Your 2 long-running shows are ending on the same day? I went, yeah, and he just went, my God, I'm so sorry. I never met him. He gave me a big hug. It was unbelievable. It was one of those things where kind of I had a whole life till that Thursday. And by Friday, the life was completely different. It was wonderful. I was still doing other shows, and I was, Disney was having me do another show coming up, but it was still two massive parts of my life ending on the same Thursday. So yeah, that was pretty amazing.
The various superheroes you played. I mean, you played Blue Beetle, Green Arrow.
Yeah.
We have 2 Green Arrows at this show.
There's another Green Arrow here?
Yeah, some guy who runs around with his shirt off.
I heard about that.
Are there any of these characters that you played in the superhero voiceover world that you weren't already a big fan of, that you found yourself diving into as a fan?
Yeah, to be honest, who I did not know a whole lot about? I mean, I started to because of the movie, but really had to go back and kind of do my homework, was Star Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy. So that was, that's the first one where I was kind of like, I knew the movie and I knew Chris Pratt, and thank God he didn't make it a difficult act to follow. So yeah, it wasn't like he hit that out of the park or anything. And then it was, I remember walking in kind of like, well, can't possibly do that well, so I guess I have nothing to lose. But that was one where I knew a little bit about it before the movie, and it was a secret. Sometimes they do this, like they did this with when I was auditioning for Bumblebee as well, because for so long Bumblebee didn't speak. So they waited till, of course, the last episode of Transformers Prime, thanks, till he actually gets to speak. And when I auditioned for it, it wasn't under Bumblebee. So they auditioned for it was a character called like Blue Streak or something like that, because they didn't want anybody to know that Bumblebee was going to speak. So I went in and I read, and they said, oh God, you're great, this is amazing, I've done other stuff for him. And they said, let's read one more time, I read one more time. And they said, okay, we think we want you to do it. I said, great, when's the recording? They said, it's next week, but there's some stuff you got to know first. I went, okay, and I left. And so I got a call that night going, yeah, we forgot to tell you, it's actually for Bumblebee that you're going to be ready. Wait, what? So that was amazing, and it was the same thing with Star Lord, where we were literally told you're going in for a secret audition, you have to sign all this stuff before you ever go in. We're not going to give you any of the scenes, you don't know who it is before you get there. So you literally walked in having no idea what it was, you sat in front of a microphone, and then they handed you the stuff, and you went, oh, Star Lord, oh, Star Lord, oh. Chris Pratt Star Lord, oh no. Yeah, so it was certainly interesting, but that was one where I didn't know enough about the mythology of the Guardians, and I really had to go back, and then once you do, you kind of go, oh, these guys are great. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So I'm going to give them one more, and we're going to turn it over to you guys after that. If you have questions, we got 2 mics set up, one on either side over here. And just as a reminder, questions end with a question mark. I typically don't include a request for a hug, that kind of a thing. He'll be back at his table after a while. But there's this thing called Critical Role.
Yeah.
Mary McGlynn has told me one of her great regrets in life is not leaping at the opportunity to do Critical Role. She's like, oh, I'm too busy, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And now she regrets that.
Yeah.
For people who may not be familiar with Critical Role, tell us a little bit about it and how you got into that.
Critical Role is a group of voiceover actors who get together and play Dungeons and Dragons, which is
awesome, right?
A ton of fun, because really, a good Dungeons and Dragons game is essentially just improv. So it's a bunch of us that got together. It's really another group of people. I've only guessed it a couple times, but they're good friends of mine. who get together, and it started with them just playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then became so popular that now it's a television show every week on Twitch. That's become really popular, following one group of heroes and villains and elves and dwarves as they go through the world. And I've been lucky enough to create a character and been on that show a couple times, and it's just a ton of fun. So I don't know if anybody here plays D&D or if they never have before.
Sounds like there are a couple people who play D&D.
It is one of those things where you kind of, you hear about it first as kind of a young kid. It's like, I'm not sure I'm going to play D&D. And then you start playing and you go, I can't believe I haven't been doing this my entire life. It's a ton of fun. So yeah, that's one you should look up, is Critical Role. It really is very cool. And you get to see some of your favorite VO actors just in a whole different kind of light. It's pretty neat.
All right, let's start over here on this side. Looks like we're starting off with a kid question.
I can't see anybody.
The best questions.
How did you get accepted to Boy Meets Girl and then go to Girl Meets World?
I was born and raised in Connecticut. So I used to take a 3-hour bus ride down to New York when I had auditions. And it's kind of interesting. They called me and they said there's a new show. Didn't have a title at the time. It was called The Ben Savage Project. It was. And they said, we'd like you to come and read for the older brother. I said, great. 2 days before I was supposed to go down, I got the flu. So I couldn't go. They ended up casting somebody else to play Eric. And they shot the pilot with somebody else. So if the original pilot, if anybody can find it, I don't play Eric. And William Russ, who plays my dad, wasn't the original dad either. So they went and they shot it, and the kid who they cast was very good, but he was only 2 inches taller than Ben. And they knew Ben was going to grow, and they wanted somebody to be a big brother, so they recast him. And they called me again and said, they're doing the Ben Savage Project again. I went and read on tape in New York. They sent the tape to Los Angeles. They said, we'd like you to come out. I said, okay, I'd done this before. I flew out to Los Angeles with my dad. And I went to the audition, and I went in. I met Ben, who was this big when I met him. And he came out, hey, how you doing? I'm Ben Savage. So he was just wired on sugar. I was there. The funny thing is, which a lot of people don't know, is there was a show before called The Torkelsons, which then became Almost Home. And my best friend, Jason Marsden, was on that show. And I had auditioned for that show, and you go from your audition process, then you go to a screen test, which is like you're now in Los Angeles, and you're in front of the whole group. It's almost like this, and you're on stage going, hi, I'm Will, I'll be reading for Eric. That kind of thing. It's very nerve-wracking. So I went for Almost Home, and there were 3 people up for the part of the brother on Almost Home. It was myself, Jason Marsden, and Ryder Strong's older brother, Shiloh. I then went to audition for Boy Meets World, and there were 3 people up for Eric. Myself, Jason Marsden, and Ryder Strong's older brother, Shiloh. So Jason, to this day, whenever I see him, he still says, I gave you Boy Meets World because I took Almost Home. I'm like, wait, thanks, Jay. But so we went in and we read, and I did not do well. I walked out, I was very upset. My dad said, don't worry about it, what do you want to do? And we had passed in Hollywood, they have this big Ripley's Believe It or Not museum. And I said, why don't we go to Hollywood and go check that out? So we walked across the street, and we were in there and said, why don't you just call New York, call your agent, tell him it didn't go well, we'll book the flight home, it'll be fine. This was when there were still payphones. So I walked to the payphone and I called and I said, look, I didn't get it. He said, no, you got it. They're shooting next week. You gotta find a place to live. So I looked at my dad, I went, and we, in 2 days, found a place to live in Los Angeles. I moved out because both my parents were lawyers and they were professionals, they couldn't move out with me. I was 16. So my oldest brother's fraternity brother happened to be moving to Los Angeles. And became my legal guardian.
How is this not a movie?
Yeah. So this is not a joke. We moved into a place that's called the Oakwood Apartments, and they're fully furnished. There are 2 types of people who live in the Oakwoods. It's young actors for pilot season and divorced men. That's it. So I moved into the Oakwood Apartments. On Wednesday, I lived in a small town in Connecticut. On Thursday, I was sitting next to a hot tub with the Doublemint twins and the kid from Free Willy. And I was looking around going, how am I here right now? And that was it. We were picked up for 13 episodes. I thought I was going to do 13. We ended up going for 7 years. And I've been in Los Angeles for 23. And as for Girl Meets World, when Michael said we're doing it, at the time I wasn't ready to come back. I don't know if any people follow me on Twitter or any of this stuff, but when I was about 23, 24, I was really hit with anxiety pretty bad. And it kind of changed my career a bit, where I was doing more voiceover than on camera because it was just freaking me out. I was getting panic attacks and I couldn't really do it. And then Michael called and said, look, we're doing Girl Meets World, we'd like you to come back. And I said, you know, I'm not sure I'm ready. And I waited a full season, and I saw how much fun they were having, and I went there and I talked to the audience, and they were saying, you gotta come back. And they were so supportive, all the fans were so supportive, that I went and I did my first episode. And it was just so amazing that I had to go back and do a couple more. So I did my 3, and I was very happy to do that, and we had a blast. Yeah.
Next one.
Thank you.
Which one do you like doing better, voiceovers or acting in front of a camera?
It's so difficult to answer because they're really different. There's nothing like being in front of an audience. When you're, you know, you're dressed like Plays with Squirrels, and there's 300 people screaming and crying and laughing. I mean, it's an absolutely wonderful feeling, but there's a lot that goes into being on camera that you don't have to worry about in voiceover. You know, it's how you look and how you're dressed and standing on the mark right and making sure the rehearsal. Whereas voiceover, it's just you and the microphone, so it's just acting. And there's something very pure and very wonderful about voiceover acting. They are so different, and I don't think I could give up either one, but they're both wonderful. Thank you. I know it's a politician's answer, but it's true.
Well, she basically asked you, who's your favorite child?
That's it. Over here.
What do you think changed the most between Boy Meets World and Girl Meets World?
What do I think changed the most?
Yes.
Ben became a little girl. No, the thing, you know, one of the things that I tell people about Girl Meets World, and I don't know if it's because they knew what they were getting into, the new cast, or they kind of knew some of the character when they got in, but I personally think the first year of Girl Meets World, the acting on the first year of Girl Meets World was better than the acting on the first year of Boy Meets World. That's what I think. I think they were better young actors than we were. We grew into it very quickly, and
you guys kind of built a system for it too.
We did, and it was. I mean, Eric Matthews, especially, if you go back and you watch the entire series, he doesn't have a character. He was 90 different people. He was first this kind of cool older brother who was dating girls, and then they were like, well, that didn't really work. So then he was kind of stupid, but still funny, and then he was so stupid that it was funny. So it was one of those things where it just kept changing, and a lot of it, when I finally went to Michael and I said, I've got to ask, why does he keep changing? And he said, dude, we're just writing to you.
You're embracing the agent of chaos thing, and we're just giving it to you.
It was so, it became where I would go to him and I go, you know, I really like to play other characters. I like to play crazy people. So finally we did the one episode where Eric gets the ballroom for them to get married. And he steals the ballroom, and then he meets with the manager of the ballroom, and it's also me playing the manager of the ballroom. So it was more things like that, and he said, we're not changing the character on purpose, we're just writing for you. So that kind of made me feel really good and really bad at the same time. But yeah, so I don't know, a lot of it changed between the two, and it was certainly fun to kind of grow as actors. And Ben, you look at Corey when Corey started, from the little kid jumping around trying to go to the baseball game, to pulling off the blanket and going, underpants. We all just grew, and that's I think the mark of any good television show, is that they write for you to start, and then they write to you when you start to grow. And that's kind of what we were doing. So we were all, I mean, you know, the stuff about like Ryder being all angst-ridden and stuff, that was Ryder at the time. I mean, that's just how he was. He laughs about it now, but he was that kind of, you know, I'd be sitting there reading my Archie Double Digest, and there's Ryder reading Proust, and he's 13. I was like, really, this guy? So, one of my closest friends, by the way, so I can say that about him. But so they'd write to all that kind of stuff, and any little thing about the character, when they'd say like, oh, this is your favorite band, or this, those were usually our actual favorite bands. They talk about, you know, Sean liking the Counting Crows. That's because Ryder was a huge Counting Crows fan. So they really did just write to us at the end, and I think that really shows. And I think they're really starting to do that with Girl Meets World. Now that the young cast is really trying to find their own character, they're really writing to them as opposed to for them, and that makes a big difference.
Over here.
Right here.
Oh, there we go, the microphone.
Oh, there we go.
Hi. I've followed your career since Kim Possible and
Thank you.
Boy Meets World.
Thank you.
And I was wondering, as an actor, I was wondering what the difference was as working as a voice actor on Kim Possible versus working as an actor on Boy Meets World, what the biggest difference was.
You know, it's funny because Ron Stoppable and Eric are actually very similar. They really are. And I think the thing that really connects the two of them is at the end of the day, both Ron and Eric had a ton of heart. They were the guys, they were always the nice guy, they were always the guy who looked for the best in everybody. I mean, I think it was kind of wonderful to play. Other than that, the other differences are just what I was talking about when it comes to voiceover and on-camera stuff, where it really is just your preparation. And at the time, Disney recorded differently than most people. Like I talked about how Andrea, we all recorded together. When I started doing Kim Possible, I recorded alone. Christy Carlson Romano, who played Kim, she was going to school in New York, so she would actually record in New York and they'd phone patch her in. And it wasn't until the second season, really, where I stared to record with anybody, and that was Johnny DiMaggio, who played Draken. So he started...
Outrageous.
Yeah, outrageous, and everybody else. That you're on Futurama. So yeah, that was the biggest difference for me at that point was going from working with a ton of people to working just by myself. And all the thing about being in front of an audience and then just being alone in the room. But the characters are very similar, actually, which is kind of interesting.
So, a bit of a follow-up to that. Have you seen the amount of times that you get to do a group read decrease over time? Or is it pretty much to the directors?
It's to the directors, but it peaks and valleys, right? You know, most people, I think, most directors realize that recording with everybody is better. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's schedule will permit it. But I think if the director wants to record with a bunch of people, they get as many as they can in the room when they can. But you've got a lot of wonderful actors that are off doing 10 other projects. So it's difficult at times to get us all in the room. But you know, Guardians of the Galaxy, for instance, the 5 of us, the main core cast, we've recorded pretty much every episode together, and then the guest stars come in. Batman Beyond, Kevin and I recorded 90% of the episodes together. And it really makes a difference. So they try to get everyone together if they can, but the schedules are usually pretty difficult.
Over here.
I got excused from work to be here today. Totally worth it.
Nice!
Good call.
Awesome. What I'm curious about referencing Boy Meets World, from the time that you got the script in hand to make an episode complete, what was the time frame like? And if you wanted to do the Feeny call for old time's sake, that would be awesome!
I'll start with the first one first, and then I'll disappoint you in a second. It was a week. We'd have 1 week to do an episode. And the thing that was incredible was that we had a good, solid week. You go to Girl Meets World now, and where we would start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and our run-through would be at 4, and we'd work all day, these kids are really hustling, where they start at 10 o'clock after school, and their run-through is at like 1. So they are working real quick and getting the show done. But it was a week, usually, from script in hand to the time we shot it. As for the Feeny call, I gave it to the girls. I passed it on to the girls for the next generation. They have started to do it on Girl Meets World, and it all stems from Larry Kenney played the original Lion-O on Thundercats in the 80s. And then he played my dad on the new Thundercats. And he said to me, and has said at conventions, he said, I will do it one more time, which he did at a convention. He said, then I'm passing it on to Will, and it's not fair if I do it again. It's now his for the next generation. I did the same thing with them. I did it one more time in front of the audience, and then I passed it on to the girls, so it's officially theirs for the next generation.
But that doesn't prevent Lion-O from giving us something.
Oh, Lion-O, I'm still Lion-O, that I can still do.
Well, then give us something.
So that's still the Thunder, Thundercats, ho! I know it's not the Feeny call, but that's a good one.
We give you something. Over here.
Hello.
Hello.
I like what you said about having, I guess you call it wholesome family entertainment.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I watch a show that's less wholesome frequently. It's At Midnight with Chris Hardwick. Would you ever consider being on that show?
Of course. I don't know Chris well, but we certainly we've met, we've worked together. There was an episode of Boy Meets World where Eric goes on Singled Out. So, and the joke was that we both had the same hair, so that was kind of the whole joke. And I remember Chris and I looking at each other going, I don't see that we look all that much alike, but, and so we kind of occasionally will tweet pictures back and forth from that. But yeah, I think Chris is ridiculously talented, and of course I would go on At Midnight just to hang out with him again, yeah.
It'd be insane to get just a panel of 3 voice actors on there with Chris.
Yeah, it'd be...
I don't know.
Yeah.
You guys know where your social media accounts are. Over here.
Okay, what is your favorite memory, and did you find X?
Okay, yes, so favorite memory from Boy Meets World, just my favorite memory in my life. Both? Okay. Favorite memory of my life, June 8th, 1991. I won't tell you why. Favorite memory of Boy Meets World. One of the memories that it will always stick out for me, there's a number of them. I mean, there really are a lot of them. Certain little things that no one knew about, that Danielle and I used to slow dance all the time together. I was like her big brother, and she would come up and say, "Dance with me," and I'd grab her and we'd dance behind stage. But the entire week of doing what we call the Scream episode, I think that was, and then there was Sean. That week, we had no audience that week. Matt Lawrence had kind of just joined the cast and was really kind of fitting his way in. And we couldn't get anything done because we were just laughing hysterically all day long. That memory will always kind of stick out for me. And then a wonderful memory, but also a sad memory, is the last episode that we shot. We could only do that final scene once. We went through it one time and we were done. We couldn't, if anyone messed up, it wouldn't have mattered. We couldn't have done it again because we were all bawling. So we did it one time and we walked out. Those were all very nice memories. As for X, I asked her to give me, I said, I don't know if anybody's going to come to the panel and want to talk to me, so have some kind of complex math question for me. And being as wonderful as she is, she came with a very complex math question. Was X 7? No, what was it? 614, that was my next guess. I actually tried Googling it, my phone went, what? I don't know what this means.
I want to make sure that we get through everybody who's got the mics right now, so we'll try to rapid fire through these, make sure that we get everybody's questions in. That sound good to everybody? All right, right over here.
You're awesome.
Thank you.
What was your favorite character to play, and what characters would you like to play someday in the future?
Ooh, cool question.
So are you going to be the new Matt Tracker if you had your druthers?
Oh, don't even start with me. Yeah, if I could be somebody unmasked, yeah, that would be great. No, my favorite character to play is really difficult to answer. I mean, overall, I would love to say the most fun I've ever had playing a character was Eric Matthews, because he couldn't do anything wrong. It was just, you couldn't go big enough, you couldn't go crazy enough, and if nobody wanted me to say a line and I just dropped my pants, that would work too. That was Eric. He was just that guy. So it was a ton of fun. As for voiceover, it almost seems like every single role I do is just so amazingly cool that you started to go, you can't top Batman, how do you top Batman? It's like, well then you're Bumblebee, and you're Lion-O, so they're just all so amazing. If somebody from Mask would be amazing, but I've always played good guys, always. So if I think I could pick one character that I would like to do, I would love to be Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe. I think that would be cool, but nobody ever gives me a shot at the bad guy. It's always, no, you're the young hero. It's like, but I want to be the bad guy. No one will let me be the bad guy.
Do you have a back pocket raspy Chris Latta?
Well, I mean, you can certainly do Cobra! You can certainly do that kind of stuff. But you'd have to make it your own when you did a new G.I. Joe, but yeah, something like that.
You've got a few ideas.
There's some stuff I'd play with that would be kind of fun, but yeah, you never know. Over here.
What superhero would you play on a movie?
If I was actually, you mean on camera as a superhero? I'd be a smaller character called Out of Shape Man. That's what I would do. It's a horrible suit that I can barely fit into. He just very rarely gets off the couch. It's not a pretty sight.
You could take a swing at Too Much Coffee Man.
Too Much Coffee Man is good. No, I think Out of Shape Man would be the way to do it. He'd see the out of shape symbol and go, I can't right now. I can't.
I mean, it feels like the role you've been building up.
Myself, McDonald's, and Hostess has made that possible.
It's amazing when dreams
Out
come
of
true.
Shape Man.
Right over here.
First off, I want to say thank you for your contributions to the Batman universe.
Well, thank you very much. It's really sweet.
And second, when it comes to the show itself, what was the most emotional story or moment that you had on Batman Beyond?
That's tough. I think the first episode where he loses his dad, the pilot episode, was emotional because not only was this the first time I'd ever actually recorded an animated series, but it was an emotional crying scene at a funeral. So that was certainly an emotional scene. As far as emotion for a cool reason, one of the coolest things, and it wasn't for the show itself, it was for what I got to do as an actor, was there's an episode called, I believe it was called Out of the Past, where Bruce meets up with Talia, and she comes and she is able to take some years off them, so he becomes more like the Bruce Wayne from the original Batman animated series. So Kevin didn't put on the rasp. And so it was just myself, and I was playing against a Bruce Wayne from the original Batman animated series. So that, to me, emotionally as an actor, it was just Kevin and Will next to each other. It wasn't the old, it was just, he was straight up Batman. That was awesome.
When you bring Batman Beyond to life or Ron Stoppable to life, so, yeah.
Will I bring them to life?
Yeah.
Again, I couldn't fit into the bat suit if I tried. And Ron Stoppable, I think there were talks for years and years and years that they were going to do a live action Kim Possible show. But the thing was, they wanted our voices, and you couldn't really do that because you'd want the actors to be able to do what they wanted to do. So I would be all for a great live action Kim Possible show. I don't think they want Ron as a 40-year-old man. But we would love to do more animated films of Kim Possible. I think that would be a heck of a lot of fun.
Right over here.
That actually leads into my question.
Okay.
We all love when our characters on the live action movies sound exactly like the cartoon characters.
Right.
And I think it looked great, man. So if they ever decide to do a live action Batman Beyond, what would it take to get you to be Terry McGinnis?
That same machine that made Bruce Wayne 20 years younger. Yeah, no, it would be great, but that was the cool part about Terry was he's supposed to be 17, and I could probably play, early 30s, maybe?
Well, they're playing with alternate Earths and stuff on the Flash, time travel.
It's
Maybe future Batman.
Future Batman would be very, very cool. Again, I think you would be disappointed with my martial arts skills and or ability to run, but other than that, it might be great. That's what training's for.
That's what training's for.
My fiance's a personal trainer. She's going to hate all of this conversation.
So on any of those particularly busy Thursdays where you're leaving the voice acting studio from being Terry McGinnis and going over to the other studio to do Eric Matthews' Boy Meets World, how do you prevent yourself from getting character whiplash? Like showing up to Boy Meets World and being like, I'm Eric Matthews.
That's a very cool question. I think the first time I threw a batarang at the back of Ryder Strong's head, no, it was again, and I've told this to people before, Eric Matthews, awesome character to play, so much fun. All the films I've done, so much fun, but the only time I'm ever allowed to be cool is when I'm doing voiceover. So it was going from you do need that car ride to stop, kind of drive over going, okay, you're really not Batman. Stop thinking you are, and pulling up to the lights and honking, going, move your car. Like, you're not allowed to do it. So, yeah, but I remember it was the 7th year of Boy Meets World, 6th year of Boy Meets World, and Batman Beyond was in its 3rd year, and I bought this big black car. I was so happy for myself. It was like my first kind of new car, and I walked in, and they had written on it, on the tag that they put in the car, they said, the year, make, and model, and under it said, customer, Batman. And so I thought that was pretty cool. That was my Batmobile for years.
We have a Terry McGinnis over here.
Okay.
While you played as Justin Rowe from Rock Galaxy,
Yeah.
how does it feel when you work in the video game industry with now he got the producer and when you lead the voice director / actress?
Are you just asking the difference between doing video games and doing like animated series kind of stuff? Yeah. Video games, they're a lot of fun to do. They're exceptionally difficult and they shred your voice. Because the modern day video games, it's not like back in the day when I was playing.
All right, Will, grunt.
What?
Grunt loud.
Yeah,
grunt medium. Grunt
yeah.
medium loud.
If
Grunt medium
only
soft.
that were what it was. But it's one of those things where, you go in to do an episode of any kind of voiceover and you get your script. Here's your script. You're going to read your dialogue. That's the way it is. And then you do your grunts and
30 pages.
30 pages, however it is. With modern day video games, every time you move the joystick, the character does something else. So you have to record for any eventuality that the character can make. So they'll say, okay, here's your script. And they'll put the thing down, and the type is this big, and it's every single page, and it's 9 straight days of it. So it's, okay, you're getting shot in the leg. Okay, it's a big shot in the leg. Okay, it's a small nick. and you're doing that for page after page.
Your leg's been blown clear off.
You're dying, you're coming back to life, you're turning left and this scene happens, you're turning right. So it's a lot of fun, but you do a video game and you're finished 8 to 10 days of work and you walk out a solid octave lower than you were. Because you just walk out going, hey, great job, thanks Troy Baker, it's been a lot of fun working with you, and you walk out and you sound like this. They're a ton of fun to do, but they're so intricate nowadays that, man, they are like just a ridiculous amount of work, and they just shred your voice. So as you're playing your video games, just remember, a voiceover actor gave up a high C just so you guys could play your game.
We got 2 more questions. I've got some Chinese lucky candies, because it's the Chinese New Year. Strawberry flavor. If you want them, just come up and find me, and I'll get rid of all these that I've got. I was going to throw them out there,
but okay.
I thought that'd be dangerous. Oh, there we go.
Nice, good catch.
Next question over here.
He just hit the one all in one guy.
So, what made you want to become an actor?
What made me want to become an actor?
Yeah.
From the time I was a little kid, I was always the guy that was making people laugh. I just loved to do that. So I kind of begged my parents. Again, we were in a small town in Connecticut. You know, you hear about stage parents and stuff like that. My parents were exactly the opposite of that. They were like, you're not becoming an actor, you're going to school and then you're going to college. That's what you're doing. So I had to kind of beg as a kid to, please let me, please let me, please let me. And finally, when I was about 10 years old, I booked a professional play at a stage in Connecticut that was it was a lot of fun, and I kind of begged my dad to let me get pictures taken and get a manager, and they kind of thought, okay, whatever. And 6 months later, I was on my first series on Nickelodeon called Don't Just Sit There. And I was on Nickelodeon for 5 or 6 years. I got slimed. Like, I was on old school Nickelodeon, yeah. And then I went from there, and at 16, I got Boy Meets World, and that was kind of it.
Okay, we've got one more audience question here. I've got a little one after that, and then we will go back and see Will at his table.
Yeah.
Hello, Will. My name is Erica.
Hi, Erica.
I just wanted to know, my favorite episode of Boy Meets World with you is the Tommy episode, because you showed your funniness and compassion and love for kids. How did you feel when they did the closing Tommy episode for Girl Meets World?
I never liked him as a kid, and I didn't like him as an adult. I'm kidding. Can you imagine if I just crushed the whole Tommy thing right here? He was awful. I hated it. No, so JB was 5, I think, when we did the original show. He did 3 episodes, and he became my instant little brother. We hung around all the time on the set. And then they called me and they said, okay, for the second episode of Girl, we're going to bring Tommy back. And I went, oh, wow, you're kidding me. You're bringing that character back. That's amazing. It's going to be incredible. And then the night before, he said, there's something else we've been keeping from you. It's really going to be JB. So I went into that table read, and again, the last time I saw him, he was 5. And he had just graduated from college. It was weird. So it was, we sat at the table read the whole time, like this. Again, it was pretty incredible, and there wasn't a whole lot of acting there because it was Tommy again. It was like, you're back! Yeah, it was amazing, you know? Thank you.
So, we've touched multiple times on your fandom of Mask.
Yeah.
Now, I do this podcast. Is it okay if I use some of this audio and put out, and maybe we start a social media campaign and get Will on Mask?
Heck yeah!
So, in keeping with that, listening to this music.
This is my childhood right here. This is absolutely...
Matt Tracker, your favorite character?
I don't know. Hondo was my favorite character.
Tell us about it. Sell the audience on Mask, man.
Mask they were the greatest toys in the world, and the show was the coolest thing because the little kid was Scott Tracker, who was always 11, who was 11 years old perpetually, and he was told, you can't go on this mission, but he'd always go on the mission anyway, and you figure after the 19th time he snuck away, his dad would be like, dude, you can't go, you're locking you in the room, but he's always hiding out in the cars, what the... So, yeah.
I don't want to endanger your life, you're my son.
It was great. The other thing about it was, this is back in the 80s where they were making cartoons really quickly. They were pumping out, you were recording 6 or 7 a day, and they were just pumping them out as fast as they could. So the animation wasn't the greatest thing in the world. So if you buy the box set, there's actually episodes where the mouth is moving and no voice comes out. Or what's even better is the voice comes out and the mouth isn't moving. Or the best is the mouth is moving and the voice that comes out isn't the character that it's supposed to be. So you see a character going like this and it's like, no wait, that's the other guy who's doing it. It is awesome. So you can tell they kind of went, screw it, put it on. That's fine. It's fine. Just put it up there. So it was, go back and watch Mask. But that was the toy on the playground that every kid wanted to have, was the new Mask toy.
There was a figure, there was a vehicle, there was a mask.
You got the mask, the figure, the vehicle, the figures were this big, and then the vehicles were like, they always did, they weren't Transformers, but they did stuff. So it's like, the main character had a Camaro, and he would drive the Camaro, but then you press the button at the top, and the wings would pop out, and then a jet would come out the back, so then it would fly. Oh, it was so cool. We have no idea. So yeah, let's get Mask. This one guy's like, yep, my childhood. This guy's like, it was awesome. So yeah, if we could get Mask back on the air, that would be the greatest.
All right, so podcast called Electric Shadow. I'm gonna probably put this out sometime in the next week and a half or so. I wasn't planning on doing this, so now I'm giving myself an editing job I wasn't planning for.
Nice.
But I'm that excited about Mask 2. But what I'm more excited about is that we have Will Friedle, and this is a great panel, and everybody's gonna go back and see him. Let's hear it for him.